Hey, everybody. I hope this message finds you well. And if you're here in Colorado, obviously enjoying the sunshine. If I were to ask you if you wanted to be a better communicator, what would you say? I don't think there's a person listening on this, whatever, listening to this, that wouldn't say they wanted to be a better communicator. I know it's true in my life. I want to be a better communicator. I know effective communication leads to better results in a business. Uh, Closer relationship with my wife, better relationship with my kids, yada, yada, yada. The list goes on and on. And the trick to being an effective communicator is actually pretty simple. You don't have to tell great stories. You don't have to be the funniest guy or gal in the room. The trick to effective communication, really, if you think about it, really isn't communicating at all. What it is listening, and listening intently and empathetically. So I'll tell you a story, and I'm going to try to make this pretty quick. My mom, we've got a long-standing joke in our family that anybody who meets my mom for the first time will end up telling her some deep, dark secret from their past that no one, maybe they never told anybody. And it's kind of funny. It has gotten to a point where now it really is funny. My mom can meet someone and 30 minutes later they're telling her, how they killed someone and buried them in a forest somewhere whenever they were 22 years old. Now that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but it's not much of an exaggeration. People tell my mother the craziest things. And over the years, what we've realized, people do that because my mother connects with them very, very quickly on an emotional level through listening. She doesn't say anything. She asks great questions based on what they're telling her. And there's a study done on this, and we read a little bit about this. You may have skimmed over it a little bit in this book, Culture Code. I don't know who all's reading with us right now, but there was a study. There was a body of work of a study from a Harvard neurologist, probably a pretty smart guy, who started really the impetus behind his studies or studying this particular thing was how non-Western healers were effective in their techniques that were not scientific. I mean, these are not rooted in science, but they were having these awesome results from doing this, I say non-Western things like massage without touching someone, right? Something like that. Or there's other examples in the book, but just things that you'd say, no way does this work. Well, one thing that they all did really, really well is every one of these healers was a great listener. And they created what he coined as called concordances. And that occurs whenever your emotional intelligence, call it, actually it's there's an electrical resistance that measures, and he did this with scientific method, that measures emotional arousal. Effectively, you emotionally connecting to another person. And there's something powerful when that happens, and it leads to effective communication. So if you want to be a better communicator, become a better listener. And when you're listening, listen to understand, not to respond. Okay, and don't talk over people. So this is my biggest pet peeve. You know, the one-upper. Everybody knows the one-upper, right? You're telling a story, and I say, I went and I'm going to use an example here that didn't happen to me, but this would be great because Devin's climbing Mount Kilimanjaro this summer with his dad. Awesome stuff. So Devin comes back telling someone, hey, climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, and about halfway through his story, there's a break in the conversation, and the person he's speaking with says, well, man, when I climbed Mount Everest, and then he goes on about how when he or she climbed Mount Everest, not effective communicator, one-upper, person that I don't care to be around those kinds of people. But there's an interesting thing that happens when you're listening intently, and let me read a little bit of this book to you, and maybe it'll resonate with you like it did with me. Remember the term is concordance. when it comes to people's, call it emotional IQs, getting on the same wavelength, right? It's not an accident that concordance happens when there's one person talking and another person listening. The doctor says, it's Marcy. It's very hard to be empathetic when you're talking. Talking is really complicated because you're thinking and planning what you're going to say, and you tend to get stuck in your own head. But not when you're listening. When you're really listening, you lose time. There's no sense of yourself because it's not about you. It's all about this task to connect completely to that person. This book is about being more effective from a teamwork framework, call it, or from a leadership perspective. But think about that in all of your personal interactions as well. You want to be a better communicator? Be a better listener. You want to be a better communicator? Seek to understand others, okay? Not to be understood. And if you can do that, if I can do that, our communication here in the office is going to pick up. Your communication personally in your personal relationships is going to pick up. And we're all going to be better communicators because of it. So I want you to think about that. Seek to understand, not to be understood. Have a great Wednesday.